Hello, hello, and welcome to a special Sunday episode of Open Lines. Thank you all for tuning in tonight, late here on Sunday night. I'm really glad you're here. This week, we dropped a heavy episode on the Orphan Train. We talked a lot about the dams, a lot about the baby incubators, the Orphan Train and the elite funding behind them, the orphan asylums, and all the baby incubator exhibits at the World's Fair, and of course, Coney Island. We've also been talking about how massive dam projects may have been used to flood and erase the old world cities and evidence of our past, our true past. And right now, we're seeing a fresh wave of alien disclosure talk in the media, along with reports that the church leaders were recently brought in by the government to discuss how to prepare the congregations for disclosure. This is a full open lines segment. So, what that means is the show is mostly up to whatever you guys want to talk about. Uh, in chat, I got a few questions I gathered from comments that I didn't get to in the previous episode as well. So, chat is open. Phone lines are open. If you want to call into the show, just drop a line in Discord. Our Discord is ready. If you like to be a part of the show or just chat in Discord, you can do that as well. Drop me an email or anything like that for any tips or suggestions. Improbable Dreamer. I'm the Improbable Dreamer at gmail.com. Want to take a special shout out, though, to one of the biggest fans of the program, one that's been watching me since I've had about 100 followers, and the best mom in the world a guy could ask for. Uh, Happy Mother's Day, Mom. She's always listening, always listening. A great fan of the show, and I really appreciate you, Mom, and much to your happiness and health for the many, many years to come. Thanks for being the number one fan of the program. So, we'll start with a quick recap on some of the things we've talked about, the dams, the orphan trains, and then we'll jump straight into your questions, your comments, and your concerns. So, last episode, we went deep into the orphan trains. Over 250,000 children shipped across the country, massive orphan asylums at the same time being built at lightning speed, elite families like the Astors, Vanderbilts, Rockefellers funding it, as they seem to have their hands in funding everything. And no coincidence that those same families, like the Rockefellers, were also in the JP Morgans, also a big proponent of that standardized education that we all have to thank for the indoctrination that we have today. So we also touched about the baby incubator exhibits. Martin Coney, the fake doctor. Sav has a wild man on his channel tonight. I had to jump over here and settle down. Thanks for your work. I believe your name is Jake, but I'm not sure. Yes, my name is indeed Jake. Hey, Billy, thanks for jumping on to the show. Glad to have you on here. Yes, yes. Thank you very much for the watch. Absolutely. And also there was a question here, Thunderstone. You said you had something someone out here tonight to call in, but you were worried about your name getting out there or anything like that. If you want to call in anonymously, we don't have to use your name or anything like that. If you want to just drop me a tip or suggestion, you can just drop me an email, and we can speak via email or whatever, and I could just read your submission over the air if you don't want to call in and have risk your identity getting out. I will protect my sources, folks. Kristen, absolutely. Jake's mom, yes, Jake's mom is the best mom. I wouldn't be here without her constant support and her constant encouragement. So thank you again, mom, for being the awesome mom that you are. So yeah, just a little bit more on the orphan trains. This was a map of where they all relocated. A lot of you are asking where they came from. They came from a lot of the major cities. The kids were taken from their families, a lot of times almost by force. A lot of the major orphan train hubs were like New York City, Chicago, and then they would be shipped off to the south and southwest of America, to these frontier towns. You can see a lot of them, like Colorado was a big one. California got a lot of them. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa. I heard quite a few of you guys actually come forth and tell me that your family, you had a couple family members, or you knew family members, I should say, that were part of the orphan train. Callie commented on last episode. She said, "My great grandfather was on an orphan train. Family never talked about it." And I was like, that that's very powerful. A lot of families carry that same silence, Callie. A lot of families know very little past their few lineages back, their great grandparents, their grandparents, because of these events like the orphan train. And that's how this history gets rewritten so easily, and the narrative gets passed off and accepted so easily, is because these orphan trains, these orphan asylums broke up so many families, broke up so many histories, so many origins, so many lineages. These kids that were sent on these orphan trains, these kids in these orphan asylums, had no records of their parents. A lot of them were told that their parents were dead, even if they were not. So just imagine that, just being told your family was dead, you have no way of getting a hold of them, you have no paperwork, no documentation of your past, no name even, you are a nobody, just sent on these trains into a faraway place. They even specifically removed family members from one another. So if you were siblings, they would purposely split you up just so you would have, no connections with your family at all. Just a very, very, very sad ordeal they were going through. So it all lines up with the post reset mud flood window. One of the questions from the previous episode was, if this was such a long process, the orphan train was lasting several decades, how were they just all kids from the last reset? And that's a great question. It wasn't just kids from the last reset, it was their kids. It took several generations, multiple generations, to quell the past, the old world thought, the knowledge of the past. Those who didn't comply were sent to these or not these orphan asylums, these insane asylums, also being built right next to, in many cases, these orphan asylums. So they did this generationally until all those that slipped through the crack were gathered up. And those who didn't comply were sent to the insane asylums, their children taken, in my opinion, sent to these orphan asylums right next door, pretty much, just like they do with trafficking. Absolutely right, Jeff. Absolutely right. So that's how I feel it's broken up. It was originally a large portion of the original orphan train and orphan asylum population were those kids that were survivors of the last reset. But it took more than just one generation to erase all the true knowledge of the past. They had to do it in waves. So that's why you have this going on for longer than just one generation of children. I believe it was Raptor or Razor that asked that question, and I didn't quite get to that in last show. So that is my thought in it on it, at least. That again, I'm just presenting my opinion, my thoughts based on my own research done to it. I encourage all of you guys to question everything, including myself, and come to your own opinions and come to your own conclusions. Wish they didn't have to destroy the old world, Jeff. Yeah, that's exactly right. And many of you people don't understand just how little. I mean, we see tons of buildings still around today from the old world that, defies logic for horse and buggy architecture. No power tools, just hammer and chisel, horse and buggy supply line. But really, in America, especially, all of these beautiful ornate buildings are only about 5 to 10% of what was actually still or what was actually built in America in that 1800s time frame. So in less than 100 years, so much of that past was just demolished, destroyed, and traded for parking lots. Beautiful, ornate architecture that should have survived thousands of years, torn down in many cases less than a century, less than a few decades later. Yeah, those asylums looked like castles. They really, really did, Kristen. Both of them. Let me show you some of those asylums here. These are the insane asylums, just to show you the similarities. And these were both built in small, small towns. We talked about some of them having populations well under 20,000, taking, that record time to build, only about a year or two in many cases. And these are the asylums that were also built in a lot of cases right next to these orphan asylums. And they really did look just like beautiful palaces, beautiful castles, just in the middle of empty fields with nothing around them. And I mean, you could tell somebody that this was a palace or a castle or a big cathedral, a big church, and nobody would blink an eye, but it's actually an asylum, a Seacliff Asylum. And just here's another one, Jacksonville, Illinois. And living most of my life in Illinois, I can tell you Jacksonville's a very small town even today. And they had this massive, massive asylum that could house 1,000 people in it. And you see it's all built in just that beautiful, ornate architecture. And it's crazy how such a new founded country like America had the means and resources to build these massive asylums, these massive insane asylums, 1,000 orphan asylums at its peak in that time period, 1,000 beautiful, ornate orphan asylums alone, not to mention these insane asylums. And today we have no funding. We had to close all these asylums. All these beautiful asylums you see today, 99% of them are closed and either destroyed, demolished, or left in ruin because we can't support the infrastructure that they built hundreds of years ago. But yet they had the means, the resources, the materials, these skilled architectures, or these skilled masons, the skilled builders, and the stone crafters to build these beautiful asylums all across the country and in rapid time as well. Like if you look at some of the populations of these cities, you'll see here Danvers State Hospital, uh, Nashville, Tennessee. I mean, that's pretty big population, obviously. Cherokee, Iowa. I mean, that's Cherokee, Iowa. Cherokee, Iowa has a very small population today. It's in the middle of nowhere, and they have that beautiful, beautiful orphan or this is a beautiful insane asylum. Let me see what the population of Cherokee, Iowa is now. Just curious. 5,181 today. So let's see what it was in like 1850 here. There was no records of population in the 1850s of Iowa around that time. So probably around the time they say this building was built, mid to late 1800s, there was basically nobody here in Cherokee, Iowa to build it, but they could build this nonetheless. Nevada, Missouri, basically another small town in the middle of nowhere. What is our narrative? Taken or cloned incubator babies? I don't know. That's a great question, M. What is our narrative? Taken or cloned? I've seen a lot of evidence to suggest both. The incubator exhibits, the baby incubator exhibits in all these world's fairs, these premature babies, there seemed to be a massive amount of premature babies back then. And not just that, it seemed like so many people would charge a premium just to see a living infant in one of these incubators. So it tells me that that was a time when babies were a very rare commodity, and you couple that with, at the same time, there's events like these odd artist renditions of kids being grown in the cabbage fields. Let me pull up some of those for you guys. So at the same time as the incubator exhibits, the orphan asylums, all that, you had these very weird art postcards, these pictures being sent out, posted, the kind of like the memes of the day. Cabbage Patch Kids, whatever you wanna call them, the original Cabbage Patch Kids. I showed you guys a few of these before. Let me pull this up for you here. So they were depicting kids basically grown in a farm, grown a cabbage field. And it's no coincidence that at the time, there was a lot of odd references, a lot of odd referrals to kids as cabbages. "You're as cute as a cabbage. You you were found in a cabbage field." Lots of slang or slogans from that time talking about babies being in cabbage fields. I think it was a metaphor, if you will, for babies being farm grown in some way, lab grown in some way, perhaps cloning, perhaps some kind of, mass insemination project. I'm not sure, but I do know that at that period of the reset, the workforce was so sparse that they had to employ child labor at a level never seen before in history, before or after. There was over in America alone, there was over, I believe, 2 million children under the age of 12 in the labor force, many of them in dangerous jobs like mines and textile factories. It's because, and there wasn't just like, them being supplemented like an adult crew of minors with a couple kids. No, it was a massive crew of kids with maybe 1 or 2 adults sprinkled in there. Yeah, even the French would say, "Mon petit chou, my little cabbage." Yep, exactly. I showed you guys that, Cabbage Patch video, that the cabbage fairy where she was dancing around kids in a cabbage field. I mean, it's just very odd, and this was all at the same time as those incubator exhibits, those orphan trains, those orphan asylums, so I believe a lot of these kids were probably created in some way. A few of us last chat wondered if there was an infertility, Michael said, infertility issue post-reset mud flood. That could very well be the case, and that's where, a lot of these farm-grown babies came from. You also see a lot of adverts saying, "You must repopulate, you must, reproduce." A lot of governments were pushing heavily in, repopulation efforts, and this was before a lot of, the great wars, World War I or anything like that. It really tells me that, they had a very, very, small population and they needed to repopulate, and it aligns with the mud flood reset theory, in my opinion. I mean, just look at this one. This one's a very creepy one. Utah's best crop. Just babies, babies, healthful fare from where the Washosh lion leaps, from sunless snows, from desert deeps. Just babies, babies everywhere. Just babies in arms at mother's breast, and robust boys with girls at play, with pounding fists too full to rest, as chubby, fat, as fair as they. That's just a weird poem and weird referring to babies as crops. So I very much think there was some kind of repopulation effort involving artificial insemination, something like that, some type of technology that they had that, again, an old world technology that's hidden from us. And that was represented in those Cabbage Patch Kids, in my opinion. Let's take a few more of your guys' questions here. Yeah, they had technology to build the Titanic, so they had some kind of tech to support stuff. I mean, if you look at those cruise liners back then, not just airships, I mean, it was a luxury, like, so beautiful. They were like floating palaces. The Titanic, there's a lot of talks about the Titanic, the few key people against uh, a a World Bank going against a gold backed currency, a mineral backed currency in the US. The proponents against that, they were on the Titanic when it went down. And shortly after, they were able to pass a debt based currency. And, the Federal Reserve was formed. That's a topic for another day. But I mean, you have tons of those examples of people getting taken out so the world elites can continue on. So, the other topic I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit more, kind of just highlight, I'm digging into it more myself, is when I had that conversation with Tim Constantine about the dams, using the dams, erasing the old world with those dams. And just in America alone, they built over 1,000 dams in such a short period of time. In the 1930s, America went on an absolute dam building frenzy. Hoover Dam, the Grand Coulee Dam, and dozens of others were all built around the same time. Officially, it was part of that New Deal package: jobs, electricity, irrigation. But when you look closer, it does get really, really suspicious. Yeah, Michael, Tim is indeed a great guy. Tim, if you're listening, thanks again for coming on the program. Hope to have you on the show again soon. So a lot of uh, these projects, they were far from small projects. The Hoover Dam, for example, just look at one of these photos I have pulled up of the construction of the Hoover Dam. Just look how massive, absolutely massive it was. Hang on a second here. I mean, this was just mid construction of the Hoover Dam, folks. And officially, it took just a few short years to build a 726-foot tall, 6.6 million tons of concrete dam. They supposedly built it just a few years, and that was all during the Great Depression with the technology of the time, which wasn't that grand, like nothing like the heavy machinery and heavy equipment that we have today. The entire towns and valleys were deliberately flooded when the reservoirs filled. Some of these reservoirs are still covering what used to be thriving communities, and they did little effort to preserve any of it. There's entire towns just completely flooded by these dams, and who knows what's actually down there. Tim was giving tons of examples of these way old cities underneath these dams, these ancient cities, and they did no work to preserve any of the information, any of the history at those sites. A lot of researchers in our space, myself included, believe these dams weren't just about power and water. They were strategically placed to permanently bury the old world ruins, buildings and technology under hundreds of feet of water where no one could easily investigate them. Think about the timing. This is happening right in the middle of the post reset window. Same era as the orphan trains, the explosion of orphan asylums, the explosion of world's fairs, and then suddenly, building of all these ornate state capitals. It feels like part of the same cleanup and cover up operation. Once those reservoirs filled, Whatever was down there was gone, hidden forever underwater. It is a very effective way to erase history. By water and by mud, so much of our true history is buried right beneath our feet. Truly, these dams were more than just water and power projects, especially just the amount of time that they were built, just very, very quick for the time. Um, so I got a question from Iowa Hawkeyes 89. The Iowa State Capitol still blows my mind. How did they build that in the 1870s? Exactly right, Iowa Hawkeyes fan, and go Hawkeyes, by the way. Exactly right. 5 domes in the prairie with horse teams, a state that was not even 25 years old at the time, and it needed a massive 5-domed capitol. Let me just see if I can pull up a couple of those pictures again of the Iowa State Capitol. This is, and of course, I might be a little bit biased because it is my birth state, but this is, in my opinion, just one of the most beautiful state capitals out of them all, and built in just like a little less than a decade's time. Just way ahead of its time in a frontier city or in a frontier state with very little population to get the revenue to build it. And there was no income tax or anything like that back then. So, how did they get the money raised to build something so massive, so ornate and intricate? Like, and this is one of these some of these supposed construction photos. I mean, look at that, just very rickety looking construction project. I mean, there's actually no workers or anything like that. It's not a cleared field. Anybody in construction knows one of the first things you do in construction is you have, a completely, leveled foundation, a level flooring. I mean, this is all overgrown stuff. This looks like it's been here for hundreds of years, hundreds of years. If anything, this is just a remodeling, you know, repurposing, reconditioning, repairing of the old world architecture, the post reset architecture. And that's why all of these buildings were used as seats of power, like, state capitals, courthouses, city halls, because those were the organizations, the controlling organizations that ran by the controllers, ran by the parasites. So they have the seats of power of these old world remnants. I mean, nowadays, we would never have a budget in any city or state to build something this massive and ornate. And they built it when Iowa was still a relative frontier state still. Like I said, 25 years old. Look at this beautiful library in there. I mean, that's probably one of my favorite staircases, spiral staircases there is. And all you see for construction photos is some rickety scaffolding slapped on the side of it. Absolutely right, Michael. And they slapped scaffolding on the outside and say it was during the building process. You never see actually any construction going on, just an empty site. You see maybe a few people, and they're always dressed in suits and ties standing around the construction project, but nobody's actually doing any construction. I mean, I could tell you this is a European palace in Brussels or something, and you guys would probably believe me if you didn't know better. Golden interior capital or of the Capitol Dome there. And yeah, there's some of the construction workers in that Iowa Capitol. It's just they're hilariously like just sitting on bricks that look like they've been there for a long, long time. Most of them in the background still buried here. The beautiful Capitol in the background, the backdrop. Like I said, probably one of my favorite state capitals, especially considering what I was known for. You don't really expect to see something this grandiose as the state capital. Yeah, and you're exactly right, Judy. This wasn't even Iowa's first capital. The first capital in the 25-year history was actually quite beautiful as well, and it burned down, as many of these things do, right? So they needed to build back and build back better after only 25 years, and this is what they built with. Just absolutely just beautiful, over the top, always sitting high up on hills like this too. Fake statues of fake inheritors. Look at those little people posing around the founded architecture. I mean, look at the landscaping here. Who's in charge of the landscaping at these Capitol buildings? They're always so overgrown, so like just terrible, like terrible architecture. It's all like muddy hills, uneven muddy hills, nothing like you see today. We actually like, make it look proper. That's how it should be. You'd build a building of that caliber, you would expect it to be something like that, not like this. It looks just like, people standing around founded architecture. I still say Iowa had to have been an important part of the old world city. Oh, yeah, absolutely, Michael. Absolutely. You look at places like Davenport. Here's another. Just look at the little cheap scaffolding. Looks like the same scaffolding in the front that was on in that first construction picture. No cranes or anything around this picture, just a bunch of like wooden scaffolding. Again, completely overgrown landscaping around it. Why would you just completely cover up a capitol with like overgrowth and stuff like that? Just all this beautiful art in this capital. Iowa, the city or the state known for corn and for my birthplace, of course. So yeah, that's some of the Iowa state capital. Like I said, one of my favorite, if not favorite, state capitals, definitely in the top 5. But whether you look at Iowa or any one of these other ones here, they all look the same and they were all built in the same time frame. It's not one architect, not one designer. These were all by committees, by people that won design competitions. Don't forget the old world structures in Canada. That's a great point, Bear. Thank you. And I got contacted by a couple of my Canadian listeners telling me that their state capitals, their government houses look exactly like this as well. I mean, think about that. It's not just states that are building the exact same way, state by state, but neighboring countries building the exact same way. They have no desire to separate themselves from one another, no desire to stand out from one another. Just the same uniformed architecture, all built by no name architects, supposedly. But these no name architects that won these design contests all decided to design in the same way. I mean, this is Colorado and this is California. I mean, California looks almost identical to the US Capitol. And I mean, you could just really not tell which is which. I mean, this looks very much like Iowa's state capital if you didn't know about the domes not being here. Nope, this is Colorado. And this is Connecticut's. I mean, just look at these same over the top architecture. And all of these were built. Many of them aren't even the first capitals. That's the funny part. Many of them are reiterations after the first ones burned down. Uh, my state capital, Wisconsin, had 3 state capitals on its ground, multiple fires burning down the first ones. This is, Kansas. I mean, just it looks just like the US state capital. Ottawa, Winnipeg, yep, they all look identical to these as well. I mean, not just state by state, but country by country. And I got a couple, listeners over in the UK telling me that, a lot of their buildings look exactly like these too. And they all look exactly aged and weathered just like these in the States as well. These should only be a few hundred years old, if that. And many of them look very old and very weathered. There's another one of Kansas, and this is Kentucky. I mean, they all have these massive entranceways, these massive pillars, these odd carvings in the front. Like, who are these gods? Like, why do we have all these random sculptures, these divine figures on all of our state houses? It's so odd. It's just very, very, and this is a Christian nation, and this looks like, no paying no homage to Christianity in any ways. And I mean, and this is a another one. It's just in Kentucky. Again, that same carving here. This one is Michigan. See that odd carving right there? Those pillars. This, I mean, they all built the entranceways the same exact way. These were not built by horse and buggy people. They didn't have the supply lines to get this much stone material to these locations. These frontier states, they had no rails to a lot of these states at the time these capitals were being built. You could not have enough skilled laborers in the country to build these state capitals, these orphan asylums, these insane asylums. Oh, and also these dams, all of these courthouses, all of these were being built at the same time, folks, in impossible time frames with impossible amounts of material, going 2 billion bricks over what America was able to produce in that time frame. Do the math. Just look how many brick factories you need, those red bricks, a lot of the red bricks that were being used in America. How much bricks we actually made versus how much there were. It just, the math does not add up for any of this. So if they're older, M says, how much older and where did the materials come from? I mean, you look at the Great Lakes, like this is Michigan's capital here, I believe. Yeah. Look at the Great Lakes. They were not on any of the maps prior to the 1800s. The same time frame when Tartaria was removed from all of our maps, the Great Lakes sites were being added. And if you look at a lot of those Great Lakes, like the depths maps of them, and they look straight up like they were artificially made, like a filled in quarry site, like a filled in and dammed off quarry site. None of those Great Lakes were shown on old world maps, just like Chicago wasn't showing on old world maps. Let me see if I can pull up. Yeah, here's one of like Lake Michigan. Show you kind of the photo of the artificial depths that it looks like it's created. It looks just like a quarry, just like a modern day quarry, like a strip mine. And that's where I believe they got a lot of these materials from. There are stone megalithic sites that are about 40 feet underwater. One, they call it the Lake Michigan Stonehenge, right near Traverse City, Michigan. That's about 40 feet underwater. But there's these megalithic stone columns that align in a circle that spread out about a mile in circumference. Those were built when Lake Michigan was a lot smaller or a lot shallower, I should say, in depth. And just look at like all these lines are shelves and it goes deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Like nature does not make that much precision cuts. You don't have that much of a precision cut, that much of a precision depth in a naturally created, glacier created lake. How does ocean floor mapping and Great Lakes mapping does? Surely there's so many civilizations there, and I wonder if any private business venture would take that on. And that's the problem. I mean, this world, it's such a globalized economy, such a globalized system already, globalized control. We have separate governments, separate countries, but it is still a globalist controlled system. Any big company, any private business venture would have so much hoops and hurdles if they go outside of the mainstream narrative, the mainstream investigation. Like Egypt, for example, you can't just, even if you have millions of dollars, you can't just go and buy a permit to start digging around at the pyramid sites. There is so much hurdles, so much red tape that they deliberately put and block up to keep you from being able to investigate. Even if you have a lot of money, you're still not going to be able to do this. And even if you somehow weasel through all of those hurdles, you still have to get the word out there. You still have to get it past the mainstream narrative. And most of the time, it'll be shut down before it even gets anywhere from there. I mean, the algorithm is a big way of controlling everything on social media today. People ask why I'm able to talk about this stuff because if it gets too big of a problem for it, 90% of the population will never even think to look up most of the stuff you and I talk about. But if they do, it's just a small, quick tweak of the algorithm and they can shadow ban you, or they can just delete your account overnight for no reason whatsoever. That's why you're able to talk about your, they laugh at you. You're just not even a minor inconvenience to them. And if you become anything more than that, then they can just easily tweak the algorithm and boom, you're silenced. Why do I do these lives so late? How come you don't do it during the day? I would love to do it during the day, Jeff. I really wish I could. I'm a father of two little ones, and I watch my daughter throughout the day. My wife has a day job, so with her all day. I don't really have time until I get all the kiddos, showered, fed, put down to bed, and that usually doesn't leave me a quiet house until around 10:30. Sometimes even then, I'm still kind of having to deal with a crying toddler right before showtime starts. So, I wish I could have these earlier, Jeff. I would love to, and that is my goal, folks. Um, Eventually, as my youngest gets more routinistic on a bedtime, I'm hoping to start these a couple hours earlier because, yeah, it's late for me, folks. Trust me. After these end at 12 o'clock, I have hours of editing all this video and then uploading it to my Spotify, all my other pages, clipping it, etc. Dad doesn't go to bed till sometimes 4 or 5 o'clock the nights after a show. So eventually we will have earlier shows, folks. And my schedules being, Tuesday, Thursdays, and Fridays. Sundays, the bonus episode today because I had some family stuff where I couldn't have a regular episode on Thursday like I planned. So I wanted to still do my 3 episodes this week for you guys, though. Like the sites, Michael says, like the sites in Turkey that is now dated 12 to 14,000 years old. A billionaire parasite is funding the site and putting olive trees over it, half the area, and concrete over a section two. Absolutely right. And that's going on worldwide. China has tons of pyramids, and most don't know about them because the Chinese government refuses any archaeological sites to be done, any investigation to be done on them. They actively pile them up with more dirt and then they plant trees on top of the pyramids. So in a couple more decades, they'll be even more covered, even more obscured. There are pyramids worldwide, and most of the world's governments, like the biggest pyramids, are the pyramids in Bosnia. They like double the size of the Great Pyramids in Egypt. But the Bosnian government allows very little actual investigative work on these sites, and they call them just natural formations, despite all the evidence that has been uncovered in the Bosnian pyramid sites. Highly recommend you guys checking those pyramids out as well. Maybe we'll do an episode going over some of the pyramid depths. I mean, yeah, here's another kind of depth of those lakes showing you just how unnatural they look. And a lot of copper mines in Lake Michigan, or not Lake Michigan, Lake Superior are underwater just off the coast. Tons and tons of copper mines, ancient copper mines. Lake Superior, that whole Great Lakes site was rich in copper mines, a rich copper material before the whole copper age of man, before the whole iron age of man really kicked off, supposedly. North America, the US, had many signs of a much older past, a much, much older past. You're absolutely right there, and many people lack curiosity and just focus on their day-to-day problems. Ignorance is bliss. That's exactly right. They want us keeping up with the Kardashians more than they want us keeping up with our true history of this world. And they actively work to continue erasing it, continue rewriting it. That's why they get away with having so many holes in the narrative, because anyone that does question it, and the small minority, even though that small minority, I believe, is getting larger and larger every day. People like you and I questioning everything about the narrative. We're growing. Our community is growing more and more daily. And we're waking every we are waking others up, but we're still a very small minority. That's why they can get away with just leaving so much of this blatant evidence whited out in the open for us, because most will never even question it. And if they see people questioning it, they see people like you and I, those are those militant NPCs that not only don't question it, they will blindly defend the narrative, even if they don't know what the narrative is. And most of the time, they don't. They just know you're questioning the narrative, so you must be wrong. You must be just a kooky conspiracy theorist. Yeah, Eastern Europe, that's the Bosnian pyramids, Michael. Um, the pyramids of Bosnia are located in Eastern Europe. Um, Let me think. I know there's some more in Europe too as well. Um, this Visoko, Bosnia, is where the pyramids of Bosnia are located. I know there's pyramids in Russia as well. Many parts of Russia have a lot of pyramids in there. I mean, they're all over. There's pyramids in Scotland, pyramids in Rome, pyramids in France. Lots of pyramids all over the world, folks. We'll do a deep dive episode on that. I'll show you guys a lot of cool pyramids because they are really worldwide, thousands and thousands of pyramids. And we only learn of a fraction of those in school. They never teach you about the orphan asylums. They never teach you about the orphan trains. They never teach you about any of this in school, because then you would know just how much the narrative truly doesn't add up in it, right? I mean, just a little bit of scrutiny, just a little bit of looking into some of this stuff, and the holes are wide open. The CIA labeled people a conspiracy theorist after the JFK shooting. Absolutely right, Jeff. That's exactly right. They coined the phrase conspiracy theorist during the JFK assassination. That way, anyone that questioned the narrative, anyone that questioned the official story behind that event was shut down as a conspiracy theorist. And especially back then in the 60s, you didn't want to get labeled, you know, outside of the norm, in polite conversation. That was, you were considered a kook or a loon, even more so in the 60s. It took years and years and years for anyone to actually take any type of conspiracy theorist uh, seriously. Absolutely. I just don't understand how people just don't question this more. I try to show videos like this to my family and friends. It's like they're afraid to question it. You are absolutely right, Kim. It is frustrating when you show people videos, you show people proof of stuff that's just, so obvious to you, and they just slap it down, dismiss it right out of hand. It's the cognitive dissonance, it's that pre-programming that's in all of us. We've been all sent to that same government funded education program. You got to think of all of the years we spent in there as a sophisticated propaganda effort. And the great news is, if you guys are listening here live, chances are the millions of dollars spent on you in these very, very elaborate propaganda systems was money wasted. So you have that going for you. And the best advice that I can have for people like you, Kim, and many other people have asked, just being frustrated at trying to wake their friends and family up. You got to do it with a gentle nudge. Don't try and push and shove too hard. If you push and shove too hard, you're going to just get that wall, that pre programming block where they come almost agent Smiths of the system that they're ensnared in. Um, if you do it with just a gentle nudge, just, make your point consistent, but be, you know, in a respectful way. Don't try and ram anything down their throats because that's when they will close off more and more. Um, let's take a quick minute sponsor break here, and we will get right back with some more of questioning everything. I want to show you guys this next before I go. I want to show you some pictures of some mines that somebody sent me that look definitely way more than just mines. I'll be right back with you guys in just a minute. Hold. A quick shout out to this program sponsor, Riverside. If these live shows sound smooth and clear, that's Riverside making it happen. Killer audio, zero hassle, and it works every time, even on long nights like tonight. I've tried a bunch. This is the one that actually delivers. Want to start your own podcast? You should totally do it. Make your voice heard. Grab my link in the bio or show notes. It's an affiliate link, helps support the show, costs you nothing. Thanks for listening. Now back to the mysteries. Okay, we are back. So, some pictures that somebody sent me, I kind of gathered up some more of them myself of some of these interiors of these abandoned mine sites. And some of them become a lot more obvious than others that they are definitely anything but mine sites. They are, in my opinion, either buried, collapsed, caved in tunnel systems, buried, collapsed, caved in building ruins. Part of most of these sceneries we see as mountains and hillsides are melted ruins, melted, buried ruins from our past. It wasn't just the mud flood. There has been many resets since the mud flood. And I think you guys just seen my other little baby kitty that just went behind me. That is the baby kitty Ruby. Yeah, let me show you some more of these. I mean, why build a mine site and then brick it off like this? Look at these brick archways, these ancient looking brick archways. I believe this was a mine site in the UK. And that's why a lot of these kids were miners. A lot of the children, the child labor back in that day, were miners for the reasons they could fit in these little cracks and crevices. Like, look here, this almost looks like a kid on one of these tours. They can very much squeeze into these little tiny areas and dig out portions of these old world buildings, these old world ruins that full size grown adults can't get to as easily. Like, look at that. That looks like a child or someone a very slim figure that could just get right into these bricked off, caved in areas. Look at just this archway that's like sealed off between these two layers of probably melted sediment. These are all supposedly just mine sites from different parts around the world. But do they not look anything but an actual mine site? These stack stones, they look man-made. They absolutely do. They look like ancient buildings. They look just like, collapsed in tunnels. Like you can see a portion of the building right here, kind of just surrounded by collapsed in, caved in portions of rock and stone, or probably melted bricks. And this is just a portion of a building, in my opinion. I mean, look at the actual like formation, the doorways. Who's taking the time to carve out a doorway like that in the middle of some mine? And you could just like it's very fascinating. Like look up old mine sites, guys. You can take a lot of tours of some of these, but the sheep again will just believe blindly what you tell them to. But yeah, a lot of these mine sites. There's some more, just all these bricks and stuff. Why would you brick off areas of a mine shaft? And these look very, very, very old. A lot of them look very deformed and almost melted themselves. Look at that archway in between all of that rock right here. Clear as day, clear as day. Tons of them. I mean, just it looks like a buried and collapsed, melted structure. Let me know what you guys think it is. Do you think it's a mine shaft or do you think it's a massive buried collapsed structure? We'll get some more of these. We'll take some more of your guys' questions I've seen coming in through chat. You guys have been lighting that up. Let's take some more of those. I tried to get my mother to call the program, honestly, today. She wasn't really quite feeling it. It's 10:30's late for her. I told you she listens to every episode. She listens to most of the live, but the old lady does need to get to bed. Grandma Red, as my children call her, because of her red hair. She has to get to bed before too long, so she doesn't usually listen to the whole live. She catches the rest in the morning on like Spotify and stuff. But I tried to get her to call into the show for you guys. I thought it'd be a great thing for Mother's Day. But happy Mother's Day again, Mom, if you're still listening. Look at all of these collapsed brick structures, folks. Look at that one. Look at the detail on that. Look at that brick archway right here. Clear as day. And I bet this is just many, many feet deeper down than it shows. All the way up. These look like melted parts. Like this looks like very melted and deformed red bricks right here. They just kind of merge and morph into the cave surrounding. You think they use the kids to get into the areas to retrieve things like ancient? Yes, that's exactly what I think they did with the children, Michael. A majority of those miners that were uh, in the labor force in the same time of the orphan asylums, orphan trains, all of that same reset period, folks. I mean, think about it. Minors, young, under 18, minors. It's, they choose the language for a reason. A massive amount of that 2 million labor force in America alone were actual miners. And think about it, they can squeeze into these tiny little collapsed in caverns, scouring and scavenging for any texts or ancient relics from the past. These would be perfect jobs for little kids. That's why they would have so many of them working in these ancient mine sites. And again, like I've told you guys before, after the reset, when they came up from their bunkers, their underground cities, wherever the population came out from surviving, those elites, it wasn't one uniform group. That's why there's so many secret societies. There's so many different sects, and the elites always seem to have some kind of infighting going on. After the reset, there was like a big scramble, a big race to go to all of these collapsed old world sites. Their families know all the past sites, all the historic sites. They know where to dig. So you bring a labor force that, they don't know what they're doing. That you just tell them they're mining and that's what they'll think they're doing. And they're just actually mining old world artifacts. Was I the p Kim, you asked, was I the person to get my mom to see the truth, or did she introduce this information to you? I proudly believe that my mother was one of the first persons that I completely opened their eyes to the hidden truth of this world. She followed my first TikTok page, goodness, almost over 5 years ago now, and, barely had more than a few thousand people, just my first viral video. I'm like, "Hey, mom, check out this stuff, check out this mud flood stuff." And she kept on asking questions. One thing my mother and father both instilled in me is a sense, always questioning the narrative, question your surroundings, always look further than the official narrative on these things. So, in a part, yeah, she kind of helped instill that sense of investigative sense in me. But I awoken her to all of this stuff, and she had a, kind I wouldn't wanna say boomer mindset for a lot of this stuff, but things like the space being fake, NASA being fake, the moon landing stuff being fake, that was a hard sell for her, that took some time, but I yeah, I showed her a lot of this stuff, and she disagrees with me on a lot of things. She doesn't, just accept what I tell her just because 'cause I'm her kid, but she always calls me after shows and questions. She's like, "Oh, I never knew this and this and this," and I like her perspective because she grew up in the '60s, '70s, so she, has a lot more of a narrative, a lot more of a layer than I understand. Jeff, say kind of off topic, do you know or seen the abandoned mine shaft or cave with old cars just dumped or dove? Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I think it's like a one in, I'd like to say like England. I know exactly what one you're talking about. Um, I probably have a video somewhere around. I'll look around for it. I don't know the name of it though. I don't know the name of it. I don't think I have anything here in this slide of it, but I'll try and look for you, Jeff. I'll maybe comment on the next episode here if I can find the name for you, but I know exactly what one you're talking about. Yeah, it is very creepy, and these mines, yeah, they definitely have a very creepy vibe to them. I don't know if anyone's ever been in any of these mine tours, but they just look so creepy, so odd, and they definitely don't look like mines. I mean, why would you take the time to brick off tunnels like this? Makes no sense. Okay, let's see. Are we in hell? Satan was also thrown into earth. I don't think we're in hell. No. I do believe that the 1,000 years reign of Christ, the Christ's second coming has came and left already. I believe we are in Satan's little season. He has, temporary control of this realm, but I believe retribution. I believe our time is coming for another reset of this time. The reset of Satan's season. I believe the more and more I look into this stuff. When I was younger, I was very heavily involved in the Catholic Church. I wanted to actually go into the seminary and become a Catholic priest. God had another plan for me. I fell outside of religion for many, many years. It wasn't really till probably after my dad died, maybe a little bit before that, where I started finding God again. And investigating all of this stuff has brought me closer and closer to God, closer and closer to Christ. Um, and, all these answers, all these rabbit holes, they all come back to God, at least in my opinion. That's why I implore you guys to do your own research. I'm not telling you what to believe or not to believe. That's just my own beliefs. The more I've researched, the more I've dug into this, the more it all seems to come back to God. And we are very much living in a biblical war of good versus evil that you're just kind of blindly born into the middle of. And we have no clue. We had no clue. And that's why I kind of believe. I mean, you look at how all this beautiful old world ornate architecture was built, these supposed dark ages and all of this time and man, when we had no power tools, no heavy equipment, no heavy machinery, no computers, no, way to make such beautiful, precise, sacred geometry. And they were doing it the world over, just popping it up like wildfire. And we cannot recreate or replicate anywhere near to that level of beauty and grandeur in our architecture. A civilization, that's all about uplifting and building one another, and it reflects in their architecture. And look at our architecture today, ugly, characterless glass boxes that shows exactly where we're at in a civilization. It shows no uplifting characteristic. It's reason why it's called brutalist architecture. Literally, that's a style of architecture that's used today. Brutalist architecture and minimalist architecture. They want us brutalized, minimalized. They want us thinking we come from nothing more than apes, that we just live on a spinning ball of nothingness, that nothing matters. We are just a speck. There is no God, there is no creator in any of this. That's what they want you to think. They can't tell you outright that's not how it works, but they can try their hardest to convince you to come to that conclusion, to make it taboo to think anything else. These days, if you're a religious person, if you believe in Christ in the mainstream, you're vilified for it almost. And that's what I think the whole purpose of hiding all of this history is, to hide all of the beauty of this world, what we were capable of, what we can be capable of again. We just have to throw off the shackles that bind us and bind us so easily they do. They made a perfect prison system for us. That's this world we live in. I don't think it's a hell, but it's a perfectly built, perfectly curated and crafted prison system. A prison where the inmates never see the bars on the windows, so they never actually think they're in a cage. That's the perfect setup, because if you don't think you're in a cage, you're never gonna wanna know what's on the other side. But they think that there's nothing else there, that it doesn't matter, there's no reason to trust anything but them, and that's how they want it to be done. Look at this beautiful cave, or beautiful mine system, and that's the last one of it. That's all I got for those mines here. Let's take a few more of your questions, get back into some more stuff that I have. Okay. Yes, Michael, that's a great tip to how to wake people up. Start with one thing, wait for them to have questions about it. Then, once they warm up to it, mention one more thing. Yeah, choose your battles. Pick your opportunities. Seize those moments. When you see somebody kind of doubting something they read on the news or watched on the mainstream media, take that opportunity to kind of just put a little nudge into it. Be like, yeah, if you think that's crazy, then wait till you see how they fake the moon landing. Ha 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 ha. Maybe start it as like kind of lighthearted, almost as a joke. But try and make it as little pushback as possible. That description of the children being small enough to go into these certain areas reminds me of Snowpiercer. I've never seen Snowpiercer, but yeah, those little children, man. I mean, they have been trafficking them. They have been utilizing them for their nefarious purposes for generations. The whole Epstein thing, the Epstein Island thing, that wasn't the first island. That was just the one that they made public for whatever reason. I mean, that type of stuff has been going on for decades, generations, centuries, folks. And it's such a shame. It's such a shame how many people just truly refuse to open their eyes to see what's right out in front of their faces, right? And hopefully programs like this and our small parts that we take make a difference, wake more people up. That's what it's all about, folks. Don't expect, Rome wasn't built in a day, the old saying goes. We're not going to wake the masses up overnight, but you plant the seed of liberty. You plant the seed of freedom in them, the seed of knowledge of some of this stuff, and let it grow, let it bloom itself. Just cultivate and tend that garden naturally, as those seeds you plant will slowly take root and slowly grow. And it'll start kind of a cumulative effect, kind of a domino effect from there. Once one person wakes up, they'll wake somebody else up, and they'll wake 2 people up, it'll grow and exponentially double. And just, standard how statistics work, how, it works. It'll catch it'll catch on, folks. Do not be discouraged. It looks hopeless now. There's a lot of stuff going on that seems like, we're in hell. We're in, a true dark age. Nothing really matters. But trust me, what we're doing here does matter. It does make a difference. In the end, it's revealed that the sacred engine is maintained by children. Oh, I know what book that is. I know what you're talking about. Snowpiercer now. Yeah, yeah. Um, Children are used in that as well, absolutely. Okay, folks, so a couple more things I have for tonight before we call it an evening. Let me pull up my notes I have. Okay. So we talked about the orphan trains. We talked a little bit about the dams. Oh yeah, I kind of wanted to highlight a little bit about current events, the alien disclosure, the massive file that the Department of War, the state Department of Defense, Department of War, whatever you want to call it, the Trump administration released. In my opinion, it seems like nothing more than a distraction from the Epstein files, but did kind of want to highlight my opinion on that. A lot of you guys were asking me about it. Um, the interesting part is that there has been reports that government officials have been in communications with a lot of church leaders about a secret meeting, basically, to get their congregations to basically tell them to get their congregations ready for disclosure, ready for things that will affect their biblical views on the world. That should be a red flag for if this stuff is actually real or not, right there, in my opinion. I mean, it's another way for them to get you to deny your creator. Um, Projects like Project Bluebeam's been well known in effect for many, many years. I believe maybe something like that could be happening. There's a reason why the government wants to get aliens on everybody's mind, and I don't think it's just because of the Epstein files, though it is a great, way for Trump to run misdirection for that, absolutely, and his failed Iranian war. But and I'm not a hater on Trump, don't get me wrong. I don't, I believe both sides of the party are, just the same wings of the same bird, basically. But the whole UFO dump, the whole mass disclosure dump is kind of a distraction run. A lot of the stuff we've already seen, it's been in the UFO disclosure community for years now. Some of it's like outright fakes. There was one that's like a picture of a little tiny alien next to a couple people. That was actually a picture from a newspaper that was like a really old newspaper in Europe, I believe. It was actually like a April Fool's prank, and it was on the front page headline. That was one of the pictures that was in the UFO disclosure files that came out this week. And a lot of it was just stuff that's been around since the '90s, and it's just real grainy, cruddy quality. At least everything that I've looked through it. Let me know if you guys think I'm wrong, but I think it's a big nothing burger as usual with this type of stuff. Any type of disclosure, declassifying stuff. I mean, look at all the Epstein list stuff they gave us. Bunch of nothingness. They still omit, they still redact the accusers, the ones that are guilty. They're saying they do it for protection of the minors, but they're still letting the guilty parties walk free. They're still letting their names be crossed out on these Epstein files. It's just, ways to distract a majority of the masses that, oh, look, we got UFO files, but most of these things I've seen on like Ancient Aliens and Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack from the '90s when I was a kid. And I wouldn't really think too much of it. The fact that they did have a lot of church leaders gathering up, that would be something that's more interesting than any of the things that are in the files. It sounds to me like perhaps they're, in my opinion, pushing their next stage of their agenda, right? Um, if there is type of a blue beam project or type of event, fake alien invasion type of event, they would want everybody on the same page. So getting all of these big congregations, all of these big churches together to tell them, hey, get your congregation ready for things that would contradict with their understanding of the Bible, understanding of their religious beliefs, get them ready for that type of information that could, squash that. So that's what I think it is. I think it's, they want to make sure when the narrative drops, institutions are all getting their stories straight and on the same page. And I mean, if you guys think it's something more, if you think, aliens are actually a thing, let me know. I mean, I think they are a thing, but I think they're more, not little green men, but more, biblical beings, spiritual beings, supernatural beings, demons, angels as well. Uh, books like the Book of Enoch, removed from the Bible intentionally for a reason. I believe those part of those beings, those watchers. I believe those are a lot of what we see in the sky are these interdimensional beings, and they have been there for as long as we've been there, if not longer. The NASA disclosure lately is looking like a desperate attempt to fool people into thinking grays made them. Yeah, yeah, it's exactly what I think might be the whole layer with the spiritual leaders being involved. They want, again, they can't tell you, hey, God doesn't exist, but look, these aliens are coming and they're telling us that they made us. And so you don't have a creator that created you in their own image. It's from an alien that actually made us from apes. So they could be getting us very much ready for something like that. That's kind of what I think. Blood or the Anunnaki. Yeah, Anunnaki. Absolutely. Have I ever heard of Ismail Perez? Yes, but not really. Not really. Like, I heard of the name, but not really too much more than that. Wojo, you said, I think the Artemis mission was to reference things can come from outer space to help push the UFO agenda. Yes. Yeah. There's a reason why all of this is going on at the same time. At the same time, now all of a sudden we rediscovered the technology to get back to the moon, after we destroyed the technology from the 60s, and we haven't been back since. We're just now going back to the moon again for the first time after they told us that there was no reason to go to the moon anymore. We learned all we needed to about it. We already sent people there half a dozen times. It's a waste of money to go back. Now all of a sudden it's not a waste of money to go back for a 60 million a day organization like NASA. But they still are having a hard time actually landing on the moon. They have still issues with the lander craft. They're having still issues with the spacesuit that apparently they had no problems with in the 60s. They pulled it off miraculously then, almost over half a dozen times with little to no issue, right? They all want us looking upwards for a reason. When it's all a coordinated effort like that, always brings red flags to me. Um, with that, here, let's take a couple more of your questions. Thessalonians 2:11. And for this cause, God shall send them strong delusion that they should believe a lie. Very great words. Very great words. Very true, Michael. Very true. That's what they're trying to do. They want us to believe in the delusion. They want us to believe in the lie. And they want us to deny the truth. They want us to do it ourselves. They can't make us deny our God, our Lord, but they want us to denounce Christ. And they want us to think that we are made by aliens or whatever. And I believe that might be a very big portion of what's going on. Absolutely. So a couple more things to wrap up the week here. We'll be back shortly, just on Tuesday. But I've seen a couple more of you guys asking, like, how to subscribe to this channel. Where's the best place to do that? I do have subscriber tiers set up on like YouTube, Spotify, etc. I mean, there's really no, you know, best place, worst place to do it. If you want to support this channel, that's a great way to do it. I also have some merch in my shop. You can look at that in my bio as well, in my link tree. But I really don't try and push, like the subscription tiers or the merch too much, because, I really don't want you guys to ever think that that's what it's about, the money. It's far, like, the money is helpful, don't get me wrong, but like, this is not what I do. Like, this is not why I spend all the hours, the research, all the videos, all the time I put into these channels. It's not for that. It's for the message, and I don't want the message to get watered down or convoluted with stuff like that. But I do have subscription tier channels that, you don't get any super duper access or perks subscribing to it. It's, great way to help support the channel. But really, the best way you guys can do it, without having to drop a dime, is to just, subscribe to the like and subscribe and follow if you haven't already. and just share the videos. That's the greatest way you can help support this channel. Um, any other support, I always welcome it. It'll always help either going to equipment, technology, saving towards a computer on stuff like this to help provide a better show for you guys. But it's all my equipment will or all my programs, all my episodes, my videos, my content will always be free and freely available to all. Great place where you can download it all for you guys for yourselves. Is place like my Telegram channel. You can download all my content right from there. All my past episodes of my podcast are on Spotify as well. Um, no subscription tier required. All episodes are completely free and available to all. Just check my link tree in my bio for all my other pages. So for next week, we'll have our regular scheduled programs Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, barring anything popping up in my kids' schedules that would prevent me. But I'll hope to always give you guys notice beforehand if the show regularly scheduled doesn't happen that day. I'll try and not just completely ghost you guys. Some of my odd admins, like Michael or Nephilim Hunter, will try and get the message out as well. So I appreciate you guys again for doing all of that. But I haven't really got too much topics on what I want to talk about for this week. I have a couple upcoming guest segments on a few other podcasts. Again, thank you, Nephilim Hunter, for getting a couple of those set up. Michael as well. If you guys have any podcasts or anything that you'd like me to be a guest on or have them come on my show, just drop me an email again. I'm the improbable dreamer at gmail.com. I appreciate all your guys' submissions. I try and get to them all. If you guys have sent me something I haven't responded back, I do get inundated with a lot of messages on many platforms, up to over 2 million followers across all my platforms. So I don't always get to see everything. I'm terrible about responding back to them. I try and respond back to as many as I can, but just send your request again if you haven't heard back from me. Yes, Michael, you keep an eye on a lot of things. You do a great job at that. All you guys. I mean, I appreciate all you guys, all the regulars in chat. I download a chat log after each show and I review it. Just make sure, I try and cover questions you guys had from previous episodes. If I didn't get to, I try and at least read every one of your guys' comments. Believe that. And they do really mean the world to me. I really do appreciate all your guys' feedback, all your guys' input, and just your participation in the show. Try to get my lunch break on your show. Yeah, I'd love to get the my lunch break guy. Also, Cultivate Elevate is another guy I reached out to. Tried to get trying to get JT on the show. He had a couple really great videos, some boots on the ground footage that he did. This ruins, this Native American castle site, these stone mason sites in Arizona that he went to, and looking just like a melted building, a melted structure in the deserts of Arizona. I'd love to get him on the show to talk about that. Also, if you have show ideas, yes, that's another great thing. Michael, you've done a great job with that Discord channel. We also put a couple other tabs in there, recommendations from last episode. We have a Mandela effect tab. We had a lot of those popping off. Those are pretty cool, like the Fruit of the Loom, the Cornucopia in there, Pikachu's tail, um, Britney Spears with the microphone. What else is there? Just Fruit Loops, spelled Fruit, not Foot. Kit Kats without the dashes. We've got a lot of cool, Yeah, there you go. Thanks for popping the link right there. That's the Discord link directly there. Michael just dropped. If you guys want to share some Mandela effects, some show ideas, love to get your guys' inputs because, as I've said since the first episode, this is as much my show as it is your show. You guys have built all of my channels, follow by follow, comment by comment, like by like. And I would be nowhere in this field if it wasn't for you guys. I can't believe how much we've grown over these few years. It's went by so quick, and I'm looking forward to growing many, many years ahead with you guys. With that, though, folks, I think we'll just kind of wrap it up for the weekend. at the end of the weekend. Hope you guys had a fantastic weekend. All you mothers out there, I hope you guys had a fantastic Mother's Day. Mom's jobs are one of the most important jobs in the world, and we all love you guys for it so much. I will see you Tuesday night, 10:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, live again. As always, we will continue to question everything and questioning the narrative together. Thanks again for tuning in live tonight, guys. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend and a great start to your weeks. And until next time, folks, question everything.